Hello, everyone. Welcome. So, yeah, this is basically like my first ever video, kind of like this, where I'm going to be discussing one of my projects from a more technical, perspective. I'm not sure how this is gonna go, but fingers crossed it goes well, and I do this all in one take. So we'll see how that goes. Um, yes. So this is going to be a devlog about one of my projects called SpriteBusters. Uh, and I'm kind of going to like slowly go through, in general, the progress and the journey. It's not going to be too advanced. So, because when I made this game, I wasn't really like too good when it came to game development, as this is actually like the first game I ever made from start to finish that I actually ended up like releasing publicly. So it is a very interesting project, I believe that. So we'll see. Before we get started, real quick, as you can see, my name is Khalid. A little background: I am a educated system developer with a focus more towards web development. So my main language is basically C sharp, which fits nicely with this project as it was made in Unity. So I didn't really have to like relearn a new language to be able to make this. Um, Another thing, game development in general has always been a hobby. It's honestly the reason I got into programming is because I love playing games, and then one day I thought about it and I was like, I wonder how games are actually made. So after that, I was just hooked. Um, Programming has literally went from something I did for fun to something now I do professionally. So that is something that I'm not sure how to word it, but it's something I will always appreciate. I love coding, I love programming, I love meeting people who do this. So I can only give thanks. Yes, let's continue. Um, so the overview of the project is it's supposed to be a fun 2D game built in Unity. So that's the first thing. The second thing is at the time I had played a little Vampire Survivors because I heard a lot of things about it, and I was kind of curious to why so many people were locked to a game that visually, wasn't on a AAA level, but it did had that level of popularity. So after I did play it, I actually kind of got hooked. Um, like a game that can seem so simple was actually like very well done. It had a lot of details. It had like a very interesting game loop that I kind of just got hooked into. Um, and for those who have not played it, I actually do recommend it. I believe it might be free on the Apple Store on the phone, and it is available also on Steam. But I think on Steam it does cost money, but it's not a lot. It really is worth it. I think it's like a few dollars, and you do get a lot of hours out of it. So it's definitely worth your money. Well, it does take a lot of your time, so be warned. Anyway, so that is one of the inspirations to this project, as you will probably notice later. Um, Second thing is I have received a lot of like critic from friends that I never actually finish a game. Most of my projects are like unfinished or like they're more like sample projects that kind of showcase a few features when I had the time. That like again, my education is kind of like web development focused, so I never really had the chance to like fully work with game development. Um, so that kind of is one thing, and another thing is like personally, I love working on big projects. As like I just I can really appreciate big projects for what they are when it comes to like AAA games, as you really get the feeling of like, okay, this is a big project by a lot of people, and you can like slowly start seeing the love and passion that was kind of put into those type of games, that eventually, hopefully one day, I can also be a part of that. So that is also one of my goals. But let's just move on. Um, Another thing that kind of like held me back is I only had a 2 week deadline. So this game, the game development kind of started on this. Instantly after my no, instantly when my summer break started, I had 2 weeks before I had to go travel on summer vacation. So that was kind of like a very hard set deadline that I unfortunately had to follow very strictly. And keep in mind, at the time I had worked with Unity before, but not as much to where I would release a full game. So there was a lot of trial and error, which hopefully I can kind of like point out to help people if they're ever in the same situation. Um, yes, let's get started. So these are kind of like this is kind of like how I've divided, everything just to keep it kind of structured, so there's not too much mixing. Um, I'm gonna see I can maybe add those timestamps on YouTube, so you can easily skip to any of these sections if you find one of them more interesting than the other. Um, I'll see about doing that. That could actually help. But anyway, so I'm gonna start off instantly by just discussing some of the gameplay features, some of the elements, the ideas, what I kind of ended up with. Then we got the visuals. That is more like just the sprites, the scene, the ideas, the mood I tried setting, just very general discussion about that. The audio is gonna be pretty short. I will kind of go into that why later. Um, Infrastructure part is like kind of like um version control, tools, just general stuff that you kind of maybe need, or just what it actually kind of takes to make a game. From that QA, basically just having people to test the game, um, sending copies out, early demos, just getting feedback. I believe this deserves its own chapter for a reason, kind of obvious. Like when you create games, you know, at the end of the day, they're not made for you. Like as a developer, you could enjoy the game. It could be a game that you would play if you saw, but you have to also understand that when you create games, it's also for the players. So when you have these QA sessions, it could be kind of rough because it could be a feature that you worked on for a long time that could not really be appreciated by the players, and then you kind of just like need to put your ego aside and understand that unfortunately it's just something you need to change, or something that you need to like kind of just take back to the drawing board and work it over, because the players should come first and always should. That's kind of how I go into like these projects, and for the most part they've gone well. I hope they have. I try to make games that are fun that even I would want to play, so that's how I kind of go into it. Okay. The aftermath is basically just like some cons and pros of things that happen after. Some things I learned that I would kind of do differently. Maybe things that I found very helpful. Um, so yeah, let's just get started. So also, just one quick note before we start with this: I will show the game. I will not show a lot of code because, to be honest, even I don't remember a lot of the code. I think this project was written almost 2 years ago. So it has been a while, and keep in mind, like it was a 2 week deadline, so I kind of was rushing through. Now the code is not unreadable. I did try to keep some standards, so hopefully that, hopefully I have not lied about that. So yeah, um, yes, some gameplay. Obviously, the game has to be fun. That was my number one point. It has to be replayable for those who, as I've said, have or have not played Vampire Survivors. The whole point is with you play and then you progress. Um, After each attempt, you basically go to the store, you buy stuff, you get stronger, you go back, you survive longer, and then you end up dying, and then you kind of go back to the store, and like it's just a lot of replayability going into these type of games, and that's why I also said I'm gonna try and stay true to the genre, to the best of my abilities. That was also one of my goals. So yeah, very simple, just 3 simple goals: fun, replayable, and stay true to the genre. Yes, so I'm actually going to show some gameplay real quick, just so we see if I come up with. Here we go. Perfect. Okay, so I'm not gonna talk about the visuals yet. I'm just gonna play and then just kind of like show some of the aspects. Hopefully the music is not gonna be too loud, but yeah, basically all you do is kind of like just try to escape these monsters by just moving around, and they will just randomly spawn all around you. And as you've probably noticed, there is a little very big guy over there that is kind of tanky, so you can't really do any damage to him. So as I'm moving around, you kind of do notice the gameplay is very basic. Power-ups will spawn occasionally, and then I'll just play until the minute mark, and then you'll see that's when the enemies do get stronger. So the way I've done it is kind of like on a set system where they either get stronger or they get faster. So if I take damage from one of them, you see that did like third maybe. And yeah, to kind of like visualize, you know, the part that they have changed, they do change color. But yeah, it's very simple. Like there's not really too much to say about it. You just survive. But one thing that is kind of worth discussing, I'm going to just quickly stand here and take a screenshot because it's easier to talk over a picture than a game. I'm actually playing the game. Almost not. Yes, as you can see, I did die. That's me. Second. All done in one take. There we go. Okay. So yeah, again, the whole point is just to survive. You kind of rack up kills as you go. And I didn't really show this, but you do need if I go back to the main menu, the way the unlocks work in this game, the way you kind of like progress is by unlocking these weapons. So if you manage to like kill 100 enemies in one turn, you do unlock the shotgun. If it's 250, you unlock the rifle, and at 500, you do unlock the minigun. So that's kind of in general for now why I ended up with when it comes to like unlocks and just in general progression. So you start off with a pistol, so you're basically just using a very simple weapon. And yeah, so you guys are probably wondering about this big monster. If it's easy to see, that little boss right here. The whole idea of this big boss was actually came from one of my QA sessions where I was told that if you just stand in the corner and you kind of like just spray, you can just camp kind of like the whole game. So then I thought about it, like what would be a good way of like kind of countering, you know, camping? Because like if you think about it, you don't really want, you know, the game to be cheesed, you know, that easy. You kind of want the player, you know, to keep moving. So I didn't really want to like close in the spawns, like make the enemies spawn closer and closer, you know, the more you stand still, because that would feel kind of cheesy, because at the end, you know, then the monsters would kind of spawn on the player, kind of not really creating like a good feed, like a good gameplay system. That would feel kind of cheap to just die that way. So I actually did kind of take even more inspiration from Vampire Survivors, because for those who have played, when you reach the final I'm not sure what the time is, either it's 20 or 30 minutes, you kind of get like one shot by this big monster that chases you. And not really, I'm not trying to spoil how that game works, but I did kind of try and take inspiration from that aspect, that a big monster is kind of like always following you, and you can't really do anything about it. Um, and that's kind of how I countered that like part of this camping. So for those who are now wondering, then why does he have a health bar? And now here's where it kind of does get a little interesting, because the whole point is you survive for as long as you can, you rack up as many kills, and you basically you just survive. You try and beat your record every time. But like, it doesn't really feel that rewarding, because the whole time you're being chased by this very big boss that kind of is just being annoying this whole time. And you're slowly getting stronger and stronger, but like you can't really do anything about it. And that's where I kind of got this idea that if we make the boss very tanky, why would you not be able to end up, taking him on and actually winning the game? So I'm not gonna showcase that how that works, because it will take some time. But in the end, when you're fully upgraded, if I find the boss, let me take out some of these minions. So as you can see, I can eventually finally start doing damage when I have the best weapon. And when we finally eventually kill him, that's when you actually win the game. Because normally when you die, this is kind of like the screen you're welcomed with. And so when you finally eventually beat the monster, that's kind of when you get that feeling that, okay, I finally beat this game. Because I also didn't want the game just to be like a simple, like a round-based shooter where you just survive. There's no end. Even though you have all the unlocks, like you're just missing that one little feeling with like, okay, I finally beat the game. So that was also one of the inspirations. So yeah, I think I kind of managed to nail like a very cool aspect of the game. So that's one of the things I'm actually very proud of, especially like kind of having to like kind of create this whole thing, by myself. Although I did take inspiration from Vampire Survivors, I didn't want to copy it one to one, because I did want to add my own twist to it. So this is kind of like why I ended up with it. And I think this actually came out to be a very cool project. Yeah. I'm not sure what there else is to discuss gameplay wise. I have mentioned that you survive time based. The monsters kind of get stronger. Every 30. No, I think it's every minute. Yeah. Also, just one quick thing. When you upgrade weapons, you do also gain more light, just to also help out on that part. That's also probably worth mentioning. And they do deal more damage and stuff. Yep. Okay. Oh, also one quick thing, I didn't really mention this, but there are more power-ups. I think there is a shield power-up that kind of just spins around the player and kind of protects you from enemies. I'm gonna just quickly play, hoping I get it, because it is randomized. I think I've shown the speed one. Okay, so the health one basically just heals you. So if I just take like a little damage, I take it, so that will heal me. I'm going to kind of like hope for some RNG. So I think I remember now. I think the power-ups spawn every 30 seconds on a random location that the player cannot see. Okay, never mind. We got speed. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna play for 20 seconds more just to see if I can get it, because I really want to show that off. Um, I think another thing I've not discussed is just the way the enemies are handled. They do spawn outside your vision. So there's this little box that kind of follows the player. That basically like tells the enemy spawn handler to just like, if the coordinate is within the box, just like oh, there is, just shuffle the coordinates again and then try to come up with another one that does not really like hit the collision. But as you can see, this will just protect me if someone like runs in too close. It'll just kill them off. So that's also another cool system. Yeah, that's kind of it mostly. I think, yeah. Okay. Quickly take it out. Yes. Go back to there. Yeah. Visuals. So the first thing that's probably worth mentioning is the UI. I wanted to keep it kind of simple. I'm also not really an expert like when it comes to visuals. I did use a custom font, like a more sprite-based font to just not really make it look too generic. Just some cool vibe to it. I did try to mix some colors just to make it more vibrant, if that's the right term. It's just a very general layout. You know, you have your information bottom left. You have your record bottom right. The time is just there in the middle at the top. Um, Probably as you guys notice, it is also kind of like how they did it with Vampire Survivors. You know, you have the time there, but you know they did have the point stop right. I just had it bottom right. So this kind of tried, you know, mimicking that style. Um, there. So yeah, I think that's it. I did have the frames because I did get some people who asked in QA. They were wondering about, you know, how the frames worked, or how much frames they had. So I just ended up adding it as an option. The the release thing top left was honestly mostly for me just to keep track of what version we're on for now. So yeah, that's a little funny thing that I just ended up keeping. Um, so next thing is like the main menus. Also very similar. Um, as soon as you load in, you have like it's a little cool little UI. You have a little tutorial, which is not really a tutorial. It's more like just how to actually, you know, keybinds. Um, you know, you move the camera with your mouse. You shoot by either spamming left click or holding. Um, the 1 to 4 is how you kind of like swap between weapons. So if I press 2, that would swap to the shotgun. So you always hold all the weapons with you, no matter what you have unlocked. Um, so if I press 4 and I unlock the minigun, that would just swap to the minigun. Same with the pistol. You don't lose anything when you progress. Movement very simple. WASD. Um, Here in unlocks, I've showed this, but I'll show it again. It just shows like what you need to kind of unlock. These change. They start off red. Uh, so it just shows you like a little progress meter. Um, the one that's probably most important here is the kill record. The total kills is more of like a achievement based stat. That's just to keep track of like how much you've actually killed. So that one doesn't really reward you with anything. It's mostly the one to the left, which is the kill record, which is how many kills you've killed in one game. Yeah, you as I've shown, when you unlock the shotgun to the minigun, you do also gain more visibility, which is something I'm also gonna discuss now. Um, Before actually, real quick, let me just talk about the map. It's a very simple map. the back is kind of like blacked out since I'm going for like a dark theme, so it is kind of like easy to hide. Um, it's a very simple tile map. Is this drawn by sprites? And for those who don't know what sprites are, they're basically just 2D textures that are used like in more game development fashion. But it's just a 2D image that is basically like maybe used for like an enemy or something like that. So it's more like context. So yeah. Um, Also, yeah, with the visuals when it comes to the enemies, um, they do change color if this is visible. They do change color based on that just to like kind of help the player understand if they're not really like focusing on the time. That okay, here's the stronger version of the enemy, so you can see that it's changed. Um, I didn't really show it, but the final version of the enemies is kind of cool. It's like a RGB rotating variant that actually does look kind of sick. Um, Another thing with the boss, yeah, as you've noticed, they have their health bars above them. Since not all of them are one shot, same thing with the boss. You could just like kind of keep track of how much damage they have been done to and stuff like that. But also another cool thing with the boss is he does have a glowing thing because I always want you to know where the boss is, you know, because he will kind of like he will kill you if he touches you. So I didn't really want it to be too cheap where he could like sneak up behind you. I did kind of want you to always know where he is because that's also one thing that I didn't want it to be too difficult, where you could just sneak up behind you like the monsters. Um, which is also like another point that I kind of tried going with when it came to using the lighting. Um, the whole point of kind of like just using the flashlight as your main navigation of what you can see is two things. I wanted to keep it interesting. I don't want the player to just like look one way and then he'll just see if someone comes up behind them. I wanted you to kind of like just keep looking around. Um, I didn't make it too dark because then it would be maybe a little unfair. Also maybe not that pleasing visually. So you can kind of still see like what's going on. Um, but the flashlights do definitely help. So that's one thing. And the second thing is it's just a cheap way to kind of like mask the visuals of the game. When you have darker scenes, it's just easier to get away with a lot of stuff. And that's also like one of the things that I really wanted. So it was a nice smart way to kind of like use this for both gameplay and just to save game development time. So that's how I ended up with the idea. Yes. Um, I think I discussed all of these. Tile map, just the map. Sprites. Yep. Yes. So the audio section is gonna be very short, unfortunately. Um, I ended up on getting this feedback kind of late, and it was kind of like my point for just not really thinking about it. But as it was like one of my first ever releases, I kind of forgot that you do need sounds for a game. Uh, so most of the sounds are this main menu while you're clicking through. If I shut up, you can probably hear it. And then when you're playing, you're basically just like listening to the music. Um, and the music was put in just same thing, just to mask that there's really not really any audio, unfortunately, in the game. Um, I did try to add audio, for the weapons, um, but it started getting a little weird when it came to the minigun because the minigun shoots like very fast. So I had no idea like how I would mimic a good minigun audio. So, and since it was unfortunately done in the end, I started to run out of time. So yeah. And when you die, you do get hit with a little audio track, and it's the same thing when you win. You also get a little different audio track. So there's not that much, unfortunately. I think it's just 6 audio files. That's pretty much it. Um, Yeah, it was added in the end, so that's honestly a bad choice made by me. So next time, I should I should have. I mean, I have started focusing more on like having actual audio on my other projects. So that was just a bad choice by me. Infrastructure. So this is something that I kind of like already kind of knew from like my my background and just in general system development. So version control was nothing new. But when it actually came to Unity, I was very curious how it would work. So I have seen some options. I know Perforce exists. But I kind of just wanted to keep it very simple. So I used Git with GitHub. And since it is a 2D game with just sprites, you don't really have a lot of static files. And static files is basically just like images, things that don't really change. Mostly big files, like maybe audio, um, textures, if there's any 3D models, like anything like that. But since it was just mostly like very small images, I didn't really need like anything special. So I actually got away with this using Git and GitHub. Um, I also had no need for Git LFS, which is how kind of Git handles storing like big static files. So yeah, there was no need for any special setup. I just simply pushed everything into the repository. Um, Game file structure, that's something I can showcase. So yeah, it is here. So yeah, as I said, I just pushed everything into the repository. Um, the file structure is pretty simple. I tried to keep it kind of professional because I knew this was a project that I will kind of have public. So in here in the assets, we have kind of like a very general layout. As I said, I didn't split everything into static and dynamic, so it's kind of mixed. So audio is in the same directory as the other stuff like scripts. Um, but since it was a very small project, I guess it's fine for now. Um, but yeah, I kind of just try to keep it like everything organized, fonts with themselves, audio over there, materials, palette, prefabs, scenes. Scripts is probably the most interesting section. That's where all the code is. I had one for shared scripts, UI scripts, weapon scripts, player scripts, just keeping everything structured again. So if you just click into the enemy stuff, you have how everything kind of was like handled. I'll show one thing real quick. I don't want it to be too much about code, but this in general, you have your serialized fields, so you get access into these in the Unity editor, so you can see these and edit these over there. Um, so yeah, it's very simple. You have your starting method, just any helper functions that you need. Uh, so I have here one for spawn enemy and one for spawn boss. So nothing special. The main difference here is the boss is spawned instantly, so there's no need for anything special. Since the enemies are kind of spawned on time, they had to be put into a core time. Not sure how you pronounce that, but this was a little new for me. But I believe it's some sort of event system that Unity uses. So instead of like putting everything on the tick, you kind of just use core times to just use a more event based system. So it'll call it after a set amount of time, so it wouldn't have to tick and check like every frame if it's time to spawn. Like I believe this is a more optimized approach because you don't really want to put too much pressure on the tick. You kind of like, if you can get away with using events, that's probably for the best. That's kind of like why I ended up understanding. So that's the idea here. Um, yeah, here you have another example of things that you maybe should put in the update compared to the other ones. So these are just more like algorithms that are kind of just like calculating the enemy handler, like kind of how they chase. So since the player is kind of like moving consistently, you want the enemy to be updated exactly where he should be going, the current location of the player. Um, and yeah, here we're just using the on collision event to check if it's hit the player or not. But yeah, that's enough of code. Going to what else there is. Saving to load, yes. So for those wondering, the way I just save and load the game, it's very simple. It's just saving to a little simple JSON file. Um, it's honestly nothing special. It just saves all the things that are needed to the player data file, which is basically this. So it'll just save all the total kills, your current kill record, and then what you've unlocked. Now, to be honest, like thinking about it now, you could get away with just using, these. You don't really need the weapons to be specifically said that they're unlocked, since the kill record should know um that at 100 you unlock the shotgun, at 250. I'm not really sure. Probably just got lazy and had them here. So yeah, but that's a little optimization thing. It's not really something that is that important to put too much effort into. But yeah, I got away with just a simple JSON file. Obviously you don't really want to ship with something like this if it's like an online game, but for a single player game that is this more like for fun. I guess this is fine. Uh, let's Yeah. I use Writer as my main IDE. Um, and Writer actually works very well with Unity. Although I have not used it that much with Unity itself, um, it actually does work very well. A lot of people they use Visual Studio, the purple one, and also some other people they also use Visual Studio Code. But I chose Writer, since Writer is kind of like my daily driver. That's what I use for my system development stuff with the backend, and that's also what I use with when it comes to game development, because Writer also does support Unreal Engine. That's also another interesting thing. So if you do kind of like work with these stuff, if you do work with .NET, C Sharp, and then kind of like want to get into Unity and Unreal, you can actually just use Writer for all those things. That's one very cool thing that I really like about Writer. So yeah, it's just preference. Use what you enjoy. Um, Nothing more really to add here. So yeah, QA. It's actually a very interesting. It's a very interesting topic because the whole point of me making games is like I would like to impress my friends. Um, so when you make games, you kind of like want to like you don't want to share that much, and then you kind of like want to surprise them, but it is worth keeping one friend or two maybe informed, and like consistently like kind of asking them, how does this feel, how does this look, do you have any ideas? Because when you're the only one working on something, it can kind of like start getting a little biased. That's not just one quick thing to keep like in mind. um so I don't really think there's any like negative with like QA. It is mostly positive, because the players are people are made people are going to play this game, so they should have fun. And when you QA, that's kind of like what you're basically just checking. um and also this is something I kind of realized. You do learn about bugs that you normally would not have seen. Uh, Basically like issues with frame rate. Since you're testing on other people's machines now, and you also like just get to see things that you normally would not have encountered like on your machine. I think one of my friends had like uncapped frame rate. I ended up having 144 frames capped. I don't really remember any other issues to be honest, but I did learn about a lot of bugs that I would not have normally seen. So that was actually very nice to have. And hold on, let me get some water. And the best practice for QA is what I kind of found is you just let them play the game as they would have. You don't really backseat game them too much. You you give them the files. You watch them, or like if you're doing this over Discord, you just screen share, and then you just see how they act. Try not to interfere. Um, Only help them if they're actually stuck and they're like actually asking. Um, but do inform them that they should try to like just do everything themselves. See how they navigate, see how they go through the menus. Just yeah, just let them do their own thing is basically what I'm trying to say. And then keep note of everything. If there's something that they can't really find that you expect it to be very visible, do take note of those things. So try to be like kind of like active with what you see, of like what they're doing. So if they're using a weapon in a way you don't really expect, that is something worth actually taking note of. But yeah, um, that's kind of like what I did. That was my best practice. So that's why I would kind of like recommend as a starting point, and then just tweak as you go. Yep. Um, the aftermath. So this is like kind of like what happened after. The final version, the QAs were done. The final version was kind of like sent out. The good thing is I did learn a lot of things. It was a lot of fun. It was my first ever game that I finished start to finish. And it was actually very good because I did actually end up finishing it in 1.5 weeks, so it was a little shorter the deadline. So that was actually a very very good thing. So I had the opportunity to go on my vacation and actually had a good time without having to think about leaving something unfinished. So that was something I was very proud of. And I think in general the project did come out to a good thing. I did achieve the goals that I kind of set out. I didn't really try to be too ambitious. So that was like very good. Um, Probably some more good things. It was fun seeing people play your game. That's also something you always appreciate. It is very stressful. It can be very stressful. You kind of like put your effort into this, and then you're hoping people appreciate what you made. But as long as you're open minded, you can accept criticism. If something's not good, you do want to know so you can do better next time. So there's not really much to that. Um, the bad, as I said, audio. Probably should have done a little more with that. Um, but that's the whole point. Like when you fail on something, you just need to learn from it and just do better next time. There's not really much more to say. Um, Not sure what more was bad. This was a while ago. Um, there was some features that I wish I had time to fix. I think some features like the armor that protects the player, the pickup. That was unfortunately locked to frame rate. So the slower frame rate, the slower they spin, the faster they spin. So that's something I probably should have fixed, but it was just me forgetting. You use delta time for those things to make it not based on frame rate, more based on time. So that's kind of like my fault. Just a simple miss. Um, but yeah, next time, I think the advice I took from this, because this is in the future, I did try, keep it simple. That's something that, I haven't really done before this. I was a little too ambitious. Every project I kind of like started working on was, trying to be AAA, but, when you're kind of like a solo developer, it can be very tricky. So you do kind of like need to stay grounded a little bit, and then kind of like to get something. Something is better than nothing. If you have a game that's not really too crazy, at least you have a game. That's how you kind of should see it. And then the better you are, the more you can do next time. So I think that's something that is really, not that understood. So try to just not to be too ambitious, create something. You can always make it better either next time or, after. So that's, the advice for that. Um, I'm gonna put all the links to the GitHub and itch because itch is where the game is available. If anyone wants to play it, it'll be on itch. Um, as I said, the repository is public. Um, I'm going to link that in the description so anyone can just come here and read all of these. If there's anything you're wondering, you can just see it. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. That's not really an issue. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't think there is anything more. That's probably the end. Yes. So, yeah, hopefully this has gone well. This has all been one take. I have kept it under an hour, so that's good. Not too long. Um, yeah, thank you for so much for your time. Thank you for watching. Keep creating if you are getting into game development. I guess this video is kind of like for you, or if you are, or if you have been kind of like working on games, but not professionally. Keep creating. Don't forget to have fun. We all got into this for a reason. And yeah, good or bad, make sure you learn and just do better next time. I'll leave it at that. Yep. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and bye.